What's going on, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and we are back with another breakdown. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification as well so you'll be alerted whenever I drop new content, okay? November 26th, live on BT Sports, we have John Ryder fighting Zach Parker, and this fight will be for the interim WBO championship up at super middleweight, all right? Canelo Alvarez still holds all four major titles up at super middleweight, but this will be for the interim title, and whoever wins this fight will be in line to face Canelo Alvarez for that title. All right, so let's talk about it. Now, I don't know if this fight is going to be televised in the US. All right, normally, like when it comes to these fights, we'll know within a week, or maybe maybe in a few days. Maybe if it's out there, let me know in the comments. Hopefully they will broadcast it on ESPN. All right. But as far as of right now, this is a Queensberry fight. This is going to be on BT Sports, and it should be a pretty good fight. I'm looking forward to the fight. I've done some field studies the last couple of days on this fight. All right, so Zach Parker, undefeated. Believe he's 28 years old, 22 wins, 17 knockouts, no losses, no draws or anything like that. Like I said, he's 28 years old. He's 6 foot in height. He has a 74-inch reach, so he has the height and reach advantage over John Ryder. And Zach is actually coming off of 5 knockout wins. His last fight that he had a lot of trouble in was against Darryl Williams. All right, a very controversial decision, and a fight where I believe Zach was injured. I think he had shoulder surgery, and he's been in a tear and knocking out 5 fighters, including Vaughn Alexander, who's the brother of Devin Alexander, who's never been stopped before. All right, so and you have John Ryder, who's I believe 31 wins, 17 knockouts, 5 losses. Okay, 5 knockouts. Only been stopped once in his career. All right, he's recently won a fight against Danny Jacobs. Another somewhat controversial. I personally don't feel that he won the fight, but it was a pretty competitive, close fight. He won that fight. I think one of his better performances was definitely against Callum Smith. All right, and fight that he lost on record, on paper, but I think he actually won the fight, in my opinion. All right, he's a southpaw out of the two. Zach Parker is actually a switch hitter, which makes things very, very interesting. But John Ryder, shorter guy, 72-inch reach, 5'9" in height. And like I said, he's a southpaw. He's a guy that likes to, try to close the distance, try to get into that sweet spot, that mid-range, close-range type of fighter. And it's a good fight. It's a very good fight. And I think it will be a good fight. All right. So Zach Parker, very good switch hitter. All right. He's a guy that just doesn't switch to throw punches off like certain angles. He's a guy that can fight in a full round as a southpaw or an orthodox fighter. Either way, he looks very comfortable. He has a lot of angles. I've seen him attack the body. I've seen him pot shot. He knows how to move and use the ring. And he knows how to come forward, front foot heavy, and use his power. All right, he's a big guy at the division. He's very versatile. He's very quick. He has solid defense. He has good reflexes. He's very agile. All right, and he has a lot of skills. Okay, he brings a lot to the table. I know recently he's been brought up this year a lot because of the Demetrius Andre situation. There was 2 occasions where they were trying to make that fight work out for the WBO interim title. Andre was going to come up from 160 to fight him. And that, fell out the first time because Andre claimed he had an injury. Then they tried to work it out again a couple months back. Queensberry won the purse bid. It was for a very low amount. And Andre just pulled out of the fight altogether. All right. So Zach Parker now is fighting John Ryder for this interim title. But Zach, young, undefeated. One thing, when I was looking him up, I haven't seen him fight against an actual southpaw in his professional career. All right, so I'm not sure, him being a switcher, I'm sure even though we haven't seen him fight a southpaw, or at least I haven't, him being a switcher, I think that's still somewhat an advantage there, especially a really skilled one at it. That I guess, I don't know if it's going to be better for him to fight from as a southpaw or an orthodox. It really depends on him. I'm actually still learning about the guy, but I was able to go back and watch his fight with Daryl Williams, who I think is a very key fight. If you want to do film study on your own, I would definitely go to the Daryl Williams fight because Daryl was much shorter. Daryl had this peekaboo Mike Tyson sort of style to him. Clearly not as good, but he had that kind of style, rough, rugged, come forward. Don't think John Ryder fights exactly that way, but being that John is shorter, likes to change levels a lot, likes to feint a lot, and likes to get on the inside, work the body, and counter you, just to close distance. I think that's a pretty decent fight to watch. All right. But I think most importantly, when it comes to this fight and these two fighters, the most important fight to really watch is the fight between John Ryder and Danny Jacobs, because for the most obvious reason there, Danny Jacobs is a switch hitter as well. All right. Now, Danny Jacobs, I think naturally is the unorthodox fighter, but he likes to switch as a southpaw. I feel that Zach is probably a little bit more comfortable fighting as a southpaw. It was really, at least with the film study that I did, it was really difficult to determine whether or not he was better as a southpaw or an orthodox fighter. He's really that fluid with both. Even though Danny is probably the better defender between the two, I think he's the smarter fighter between the two. Zach is at this point of his career, comparing to an older Danny Jacobs, I feel like Zach is bigger, he's stronger, he's more aggressive than Danny, and he's probably more willing to mix it up and engage with John Ryder on the inside, all right? Whether or not that would be a good idea, I don't know. But I think he's more willing to get the better of John in certain points while fighting on the inside because he can fight that kind of fight. Whereas when Danny fought him, I think John Ryder was winning in those exchanges and those fights. So I think that is the key fight to watch. So if you're going to watch a fight, watch the John Ryder fight against Danny Jacobs, because there's some similarities there with Zach Parker. All right. But what I really like about Zach is that I like the angles, I like the pot shotting, and I like him working the body. He's big on that. He has power. Like I said, he knocked out the last 5 fighters. In that fight with Daryl Williams, though, he struggled a lot. Like I said, he had an injury. He had shoulder surgery after that fight. And you can tell that he was pretty much fighting with one hand for a good portion of that fight. But it's a good fight to look at just because of the dimensions of Daryl Williams and the pressure that he put on Zach. I believe that Zach, in this fight here against John Ryder, he has to find a way. Even though I think he can do pretty much everything, I think his best shot in this fight is trying to keep this fight in the center of the ring. Don't back up. I know he can set traps. I know he likes to use the perimeter of the ring. But I think it's best if he can try to find a way to stand in front of him, like we saw with Bivol and Zerto the other day. If he can kind of bring that kind of fight where he's not on his back foot constantly and he's just not moving laterally, I think he's good at fighting that way. But I think with John, I think he wants to stand in front of him, all right, but stay out of range, make it a long range fight, use that jab. Some of his flaws really is sometimes his jab is a little too lazy with it. He's a little too close. It's going to allow John Ryder to counter with overhand rights and get in the mix, work the body, throw those combination, be in that spot that John really wants to be. And I think with Zach, even though he moves right, we can see quick step backs from him. Sometimes he leaves his chin a little bit open. Sometimes he throws a jab, leaves his arm out there a little too long. And I think he can get countered with some overhand rights by John Ryder. All right. I'm sorry. Overhand lefts because he's a southpaw. So my bad. All right. Also, he can get countered with some lead right hooks as well, or check right hooks as well. But I think John is more of a guy that's gonna try to close the distance. So even though I think Zach is gonna move in order to keep, at bay and use that reach that he has, I think he needs to try to keep it where he's not getting chased the entire time like he was in the Darrell Williams fight. All right. And obviously for John Ryder, I think the only issues that I really have with him is that he can kind of be predictable. You know when the counter is coming. A guy with a good reach, a good jab, and with good legs, a guy that's going to, just be light on his feet and use the ring and have quick step backs. He's going to struggle against, at least with John, he feints well. He changes level well. He has good timing. We saw that in the Callum Smith fight. I don't think that Callum Smith and Zach Parker have many similarities. I think in that fight, you could clearly see that Callum Smith, even though that's probably, on paper, one of the best fighters that John Ryder actually faced, he's very tall, but he was very stiff in that fight. Slower, not as agile as a Danny Jacobs, not as defensively gifted and crafty like a Danny Jacobs. So it was easy for John in that fight to push Callum Smith back, have his back against the ropes, and go to work. Zach is not like that. Zach, if anything, if he feels like he wants to be a little evasive, he can actually just fight on the back foot and just use the ring and pot shot. He can do that. And then look for opportunities to step in, use those angles, and get back out of the dangers. Plus, with those angles, he's going to be switching from southpaw to orthodox, righty to lefty continuously. So that just leaves him more room to land more attacks, shots that John may not see coming like he did against Daniel Jacobs. All right. Fortunately for Danny in that fight is Danny didn't keep the pace going. He definitely clearly won the first half of the fight. But once John started to close the gap a little bit, and since Danny started to fight more squared, that's when he started to get hit a lot more often. I still think Danny won more rounds, in my opinion. But John Ryder definitely performed better in the second half of that fight. I see Zach not being as squared, and I'm basing that off the Darrell Williams fight where he basically moved the entire fight. Yes, I know I don't think it was enough. I do think that Darrell won that fight. All right, and Zach got a gift that night, but again, he was injured, and he should be a lot better since then. That fight was 4 years ago, and I'm expecting him to be better. He's looked stronger, yet he can still fight that real slick, slippery kind of fight. Just got to be careful with protecting his chin. Sometimes when he's throwing punches from odd angles, all right, and he's switching, sometimes his chin is a little bit exposed, especially when he's exchanging and trading hooks. You don't want to trade hooks with John Ryder, who's shorter. The hook is going to come quicker, and he has to be careful. I can see him definitely getting hurt by a hook if he trades with John Ryder, and that right hand or that lead hand is not protecting himself from what's being thrown back at him. I think that's his major flaw, is sometimes with the opponents he's faced in his last 5 fights, I don't think he's aware of what's getting thrown back at him. Sometimes I see him slipping shots, all right, and leaning back. But sometimes I see him getting caught in those exchanges because his chin is kind of exposed. And I could see John Ryder, if not like stopping him or anything, but definitely hurting him with a good shot and winning the round with landing that good shot. All right, but John Ryder is pretty tight. I think he's kind of limited as in compared to Zach Parker. You know, I mean, he's kind of like a come forward guy. You know, it's a guy that's just trying to close the gap. You know, he's not an outside fighter. He's not a long range fighter because he doesn't have the length really to do it. But he has a good jab. He knows how to close distance on opponents. He knows how to cut the ring off pretty well too. And you know, he's good at going to the body and exchanging and keeping that guard up tight, that defense tight when he's trading. You know, so that's the kind of fight. But overall, I think Zach Parker brings more to the table. I know he hasn't fought anyone that's like elite yet. You know, I think John at least fought 2 in his career. Zach hasn't really had that fight, and plus Zach hasn't really fought a real southpaw yet neither. So the best opponent he's faced up to this point will be John Ryder. And John Ryder has proven to be at least world level, and he is a southpaw on top of that. All right, and he's much more experienced. But I believe that Zach has it's the more gifted talent between the two. He literally can do everything. I think he has some defensive flaws for sure, and they may get exposed in this fight. But overall, he's the more talented fighter, and I believe he wins the fight. I am picking Zach Parker to win on points. John Ryder has been stopped before in a fight, so I wouldn't be surprised if Zach were to get a stoppage in this fight, because again, he goes to the body very, very well. And I can see him hurting John Ryder by going to the body, or at least opening him up top so he can hit John with some shots up top, because John will start to protect his body like some of the other opponents that I've seen face Zach Parker. All right, Morrison was one of the guys that was getting shots. He was getting tore up to the body by Zach Parker. But overall, Zach Parker just too versatile. And I think even if he's struggling in the fight, he can make the proper adjustments to win the fight. He's dealt with pressure. He's fought a full fight while injured. You know, I think he has what it takes to beat John Ryder, and I'm picking him to win a decision for this fight. You know, John has shown to be tough. I don't think he gets stopped. You know, I don't think Zach is just going to have his way with him because he's going to respect John, but I still don't think John is going to be able to beat him. But you never know. John is the experienced one here, and if Zach makes a mistake, it can cost him. But I got Zach winning this one on points, all right? So anyway, I'll follow up with you guys once I find out, or maybe if someone knows in the comments whether or not this fight is televised on ESPN or here in the States. But it's a pretty good matchup, and I think it makes for a good fight. I think the Danny Jacobs-John Ryder fight was pretty good too. But I think with the younger Zach Parker, it should be an even better fight, all right? So let me know what you guys think in the comments, please. If you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up, smash that like button. And if you are new, subscribe to the channel and hit me up on social media. And I'm out of here. Peace.